Breaking the Code with Gabriella tells the story of a young girl who overcomes gender stereotypes in robotics, cementing herself as a role model for young women. The book includes science and engineering information, such as the design process and Java tutorials. As part of our initiative to empower young girls to pursue their interests in STEM, we're running the Breaking the Code with Gabriella Trailblazers in STEM speaker series, which explores the careers of women in science, technology, engineering, and math. The series aims to dispel gender stereotypes and aid young students in getting advice on how to pursue their own passions. Today, I'm here with Valeria Jara, who is a software engineer from Peru, currently working as a backend Ruby developer at a startup based in New York City, seeking creative solutions with tech. Jara majored in computer science and minored in mathematics with experience in authentication. She's also active on social media, sharing her own experiences and tips for aspiring programmers. Now, could you give a brief introduction about yourself, anything about your journey in STEM, your future goals, or your current interests that you think are notable?
Sure. Once again, thank you so much for this opportunity. I also think that it is incredible just seeing the things that like high schoolers are doing now in order to even like further motivate the next generation into pursuing this field. Because especially, so I was in high school about 10 years ago, and there was nothing that I could really relate to. It's just fascinating to me to see these things like popping up nowadays. So yeah, a little bit about my journey. So I was born and raised in Peru, and it was actually in Peru that I discovered coding for the first time. And it wasn't because someone told me about it, or it wasn't because I had a class about it. It was just because I loved getting on my computer and looking up like games, especially like dress up games or like flash games and things like that. And then I started looking into creative spaces such as DeviantArt and seeing people put up their digital artwork, but also some flash games that they would have created on their own in their room, like at their own home. So I was like, oh, if these people can do these things, then that means that I can do it if I just follow a tutorial or something. So it was that creativity that really pulled me into it, and like all the things that you can really create with code. It's not necessarily just like this hello world problem program. It's so much more. So I'm really much someone that pushes for introducing coding to other people through the process of creativity. And then aside from that, well, I moved to the US when I was about 15 years old. My parents were incredibly supportive in the sense that they let me go live with my family in the US and they stayed back in Peru. The whole time I knew that I wanted to major in computer science and become a software engineer. So it was very challenging to not have a lot of those resources at the time and just try and figure everything out on my own. So I also faced a lot of people who told me, oh, you're not good at math, like you shouldn't pursue engineering, or a lot of discouragement about, oh, you're gonna get talked down to constantly, like you need to change your personality if you want to make it in tech. And it was just so much negativity that I didn't allow to stop me from pursuing my goal. So yeah, here I am as a software engineer, now based in New York City. And yeah, I think with all the life experience that I've had so far, I really hope to motivate other young people, especially those that don't follow the traditional, oh, like I took a class and I liked it and that's it. It's like there's just so many other ways to be able to like find enjoyment in coding, and it doesn't have to be perfect, and you don't have to be a math genius right away. There's just so many avenues for you to find it and to be successful in it.
Yeah, definitely. Even if your interests at first don't seem related, it might be like in art or in some other creative fashion, there's definitely a lot of ways to tie back to STEM, and I think no matter what route you take, it's equally as like inspiring as challenging and as rewarding. Um, so kind of diving a little more into what you talked about, like your beginnings in tech, I read your biography and I saw that you mentioned a passion for art being a reason that you're working with computers. And it's actually pretty similar to our picture book, Breaking the Code with Gabriella, which includes information on like the design process in programming and careers in engineering and tech to get young students excited about STEM through art. So could you talk a little bit more about the role that art and other creative methods have played throughout your journey, maybe from even after when you started, and how it shaped you as a software engineer today?
Yeah, absolutely. And I find that to be also really fascinating because I can relate to that I was very much an artsy kid, even if at the time I wasn't the best at math, I just knew that I was very, very creative from the start. So at first, I would just draw like on a piece of paper, and then I found out that you can actually do digital art. Like you can get like a little tablet, or nowadays like an iPad, and then you can just draw on your iPad and upload it to like different websites and get feedback and improve on it. So it was through that process that I realized like, oh, if I learn how to code, then I can turn like my pictures into characters or backgrounds in whatever game that I'm making. So I thought that that was just completely fascinating. It allowed me to completely take control of the direction of what this project would be, or like the several projects that I worked on at the time. So I think there's definitely like a lot of power that you can have by being a creative person who can make their own art or like visual elements, and being able to put that together through code. So ever since I got into the industry, though, unfortunately, I haven't been able to be as creative or like work with art at the same time as coding. But I think that creative mindset is still there. And I think that when I look for solutions on the day to day, I try to like think outside of the box. And I think it has also helped me, for example, if I want to do something outside of my day-to-day job, such as social media, I think being creative has also pushed forward the message that I want to get across to other people, especially when it comes to introducing new concepts to uh, people that are just learning how to code.
Yeah, definitely. I know like that creative like problem solving process is very important, like
Mhm.
debugging and being able to like find like a more efficient way to do things, etc. Um, and there's definitely like a lot of intersection between art and programming, like for example, like
Mhm.
animation. And
Right.
there's a lot of different roles that if you're interested in both, you could take. Um,
Mhm.
so you mentioned digital art. That sounds really exciting. So what is exactly does that involve?
So personally, it was at the time, I first started out with like scanning my drawings using a scanner, and then I would use my mouse to kind of like trace everything and like paint it through like Photoshop. But then eventually, I remember I got like Wacom, a tablet, I think at the time. And so then I would draw on the computer looking at the screen while, like my hand was kind of like moving. So it was like a little bit more complicated. But I think nowadays people can work on our projects directly on their iPad, which makes it a lot easier because it's like drawing it on paper. So yeah, I would say it was like mostly like illustrations. I would do a lot of like scenery, or I would like draw my own characters, and then those characters in that scenery I would put into, or I would turn into like some kind of like flash project or like a flash game. But I do know that there's some people that actually code, and with I think they use I think they specifically use CSS to produce art, which I haven't really delved into too much, but I find that to be so fascinating, and it's another way to kind of find that in between of coding and art.
Yeah, I know. I myself I've seen like the artwork that's just made with code and it's like
Hmm.
very exciting, very interesting even because it's crazy to think like something that's so technical can make something that, you might not even think would connect.
Yeah, so sorry. I think my dog is just like asking for something, so I don't know if that audio was heard in the back. So I'm gonna give her something to chew
Okay.
on, and then so maybe you can say that again without the sound in the back in a little bit. 1 second. Okay.
Okay, I mean, I personally didn't hear it. Any sounds,
Okay.
I'm not sure. Um, yeah, I would just say, I kind of forgot where I was going. But yeah, definitely, I think digital art is very exciting and being able to merge, something that's creative and tech is a really cool and interesting bridge to go down. So then diving a little bit into your current career, could you speak a little bit about like your role for like young listeners, what your day-to-day work looks like, and how they might be able to, or what they might be able to envision themselves doing in the future?
Right. Yeah. So I'm a software engineer at a tech startup, and we work remotely for the most part. There might be a couple days a month that we do have to go to the office, but for the most part, we're all living in completely separate places. So I will usually start off with like stand-ups, which is where you kind of break down like the progress that you've made and if you need any help from any of your coworkers. So it's just daily updates, and then after that, you look through, I guess, the different you break down the project into what it's is called like a task or a ticket, or yeah, I would say like a ticket. And then you are just kind of working on that throughout the rest of your day. It might be like complete silent coding. You might pair up with like another coworker, or, like do some pair programming, or maybe they're just going to help you out and then you're sharing your screen. You might go into a meeting where you actually have to, or at least this isn't always the case, but I do deal with like a lot of clients. So it is very much a client facing role where I have to be really careful with what I say and also try and be the person who understands someone who might not understand too many technical terms and then translate that into like technical terms. So it is a lot more communication than what most people might expect for a technical role.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's a lot to be said about being able to translate, like technical, like coding, terms into like something that like someone without any prior knowledge can understand, especially not only like for clients, but also like in education too,
Yeah.
able to help like younger students understand that. So then throughout your career, have there been any challenges that you faced as a woman in what I know is a really male-dominated field, programming, and how did you overcome them?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, from the second that I stepped out of college and got into like my first role, I could already tell that I I was different. You know, I was different in terms of personality, background, being a woman. And there were some people that were higher ups and that were overseeing my project that could also tell. And then because of that, perhaps like their unconscious bias led them to put me in positions where I would be the only woman in the room, and then they would automatically just treat me as their secretary or note taker, or just really not speak to me in a way that showed any respect for me as a coworker. So yeah, there's definitely a lot of times where you are just going to feel this like negative feeling like there's something wrong, but no one else is saying anything, but I just don't feel right. And that's when you unfortunately, like sometimes you can't even rely on like other people at work because they don't get it because you're the only woman. So that's when you're going to have to rely on yourself, maybe people outside of your role, like friends, family, ex coworkers, or ex classmates, to kind of like make you understand that you're not crazy essentially for noticing that you are being treated not like the rest of your coworkers, and that you need to say something to your manager, or even if things get escalated, because sometimes even if you do say something, things are not taken seriously, then sometimes it is time to look for like a different role. And that's what happened to me in my at my last job, that I could not take a person that kept just mistreating me, not taking me seriously. So then I quit, and everyone was suddenly like, "Oh no, Val, like we really value your work," or whatever. And I'm like, "Nope, like I'm going to go somewhere where I actually do feel, or at least like from what I've seen in the interviews and with speaking with like newer coworkers, that like I am going to be treated much better."
Yeah, definitely. I think kind of like what you said, being able to recognize that something's wrong, and then part of that is having like a supportive community around you, or maybe like some people even outside your job that you can relate to, maybe like in other companies that
Hmm.
like, they're experiencing something similar. It's not just me, and we're kind of in this together, and we should probably
Hmm.
speak up about it, and be able to like express our feelings and do something about it. So, kind of speaking about that community, I know that you're active on social media and being able to, or helping aspiring programmers, with like sharing tips and giving insights on your job. So, what is like something that you hope to accomplish through your social media, and how do you hope to impact like the next generation of young coders?
Yeah, what I hope to accomplish, and I feel like I have in a way accomplished, given that I've received a lot of messages of young girls that are saying, like, I chose computer science because of you, or I just got my first internship and I watched your videos back in 2020. And it's been a while since I've been on social media, so I can already kind of like see the fruits of that. And I am very thankful that I decided to do this. So I hope to change the way that tech is seen. And I hope that not only from like, so that outsiders can see tech as like, oh, it's not like a place just for guys, after all, but also so that other women or underrepresented people like feel comfortable joining this industry and feel like they can say something against the like the barriers or the things that they don't find to be okay. Like, you don't necessarily have to conform to the people, or to the typical like nerdy programmer that dedicates their entire lives to coding and doesn't really do anything else. Like, you can balance it out, or you can just do whatever. You can be whoever you want to be and code, and you can be introduced to coding through like fun methods. You don't have to be doing um only like lead coding like every single day, and that's the only way that you're going to get better at code. Like, there's just so much more out there, and the way that it was placed in such a box, I think, made it super unappealing to a lot of people. And I think overall it is a great industry to be in, despite like the flaws here and there. And I'm glad that, I guess, people are starting to see that you don't have to conform in order to join this industry.
Yeah, definitely. I think especially for coding because it's such
Hmm.
a, you know, it on the outside, I know personally like, it seems very demanding, very
Hmm.
difficult. And that's true for a lot of other STEM careers too. Like I think like science, engineering, mathematics. Like I think all those seem to have like a really high barrier of entry, but like with people like you sharing like their stories and sharing like advice and tips for people who want to get into that, it just really helps like younger students see themselves like in the industry in the future and actually want to pursue it. Um, so I think social media has definitely been able to like spread the message even further. Outside of just like say like one like city, it's being able to like spread across the entire world. So if there was one piece of career related advice you could give to your middle school self or your younger self, what would it possibly be?
Yeah, it absolutely would be to just keep persevering, even if you're not the most disciplined person. Sometimes people come up to me and they're like, "Oh, you must have been like so disciplined and done everything right." And I'm like, "No, I was actually a mess." But I think I just kept pushing and I kept persevering. And even though like people told me like, "You're bad at math, you can't do this, you can't do that," and I kept persevering, but the whole time I felt like there was like a little bit of like guilt and insecurity. And I wish that I could tell my middle school self, like, just have fun, it's gonna work out, just keep pushing and it's gonna work out. It might not be immediately, it might take longer, but it doesn't matter so long as you get to the end goal and don't let anybody stop you or make you feel bad. And I would also say to take care of my mental health. I hope that middle schoolers, I know that there's especially like a lot of pressure for high school students when it comes to like applying to colleges, and then trying to be the best candidate for everything. But I think ultimately, for example, I didn't get into the college that I wanted to, or I didn't get like the scholarships that I wanted, and things still worked out for me. So I think just so long as you keep persevering, don't be so hard on yourself for not getting to like the top or like the very best, because sometimes things just end up working out. So yeah, and definitely mental health should always be a priority. Like, never just feel like you're breaking down because of like all the stress. I think I definitely wish that I would have enjoyed my teenage years a little bit more and been a little bit more relaxed.
Yeah, definitely. Because I think, like, even if you do like get like tons of rejections, I know me personally, and I'm sure a lot of other students can relate.
Mhm.
But like, it's really only a true rejection if you just quit or you just stop
Yeah.
working towards your dream. And at the end, I feel like if you keep working at it, it will eventually work out. I think that's
Hmm.
definitely a very valuable piece of advice. So then kind of building off of that, what specific to your industry, what advice would you give to young girls who are looking to get involved with programming and computers?
I would say to look for the way that you can get involved in the most, I guess, like that is most fun to you personally. So to me, it was to make little Flash games. I know Flash is dead, but maybe there's like other options for people that want to make their own games. I know there's things like Unity nowadays. But maybe that's not how you want to express your creativity. Maybe there's like another source of creativity, or maybe you do have something in mind, like maybe you want to help people, and maybe through coding you can create an app that achieves that goal. So don't do things just because it's going to look good on my resume. It's going to look good for other people. Do things that help with your learning and also make you have fun. And you're like, you actually care about those things, because that's going to push you to have something that you can talk through, maybe like through interviews, and that, and people can tell when you care about something versus what you're, when you're doing something just because it's going to impress someone else.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. Because being able to have something you're really interested, especially at the
Hmm.
beginning when you're in like middle school or like early high school, being able to have something you're super passionate about and
Hmm.
genuinely interested in, it really only fuels you to never, well, like like you said, persevere, despite like any difficulties that might come your way.
Hmm.
Well, thank you so much for speaking with me today. Um,
Yeah, thank you so much for inviting me too.
yeah.